The in-laws can be hell to be around. I would know. My name is Raven, 35, and my in-laws, Helen and James, both 68 years old, almost ruined our family vacation. My husband, Henry, 35 years of age, and I were planning a family vacation at a resort out in Brazil. Unbeknown to them, my father owns the resort, and I was supposed to treat my in-laws as a surprise for their 40th anniversary. I've been trying to get in their good graces for years, but no matter what I do, they don't appear to like me very much. I don't know what I did, but I had my theories. Helen and James came over for dinner, and my husband and our 2 children, Gina and Christopher, 12 and 11 years old, sat quietly playing with their phones. Dinner hadn't officially started yet, as I was still cooking the sauce for the pasta. My in-laws were seated at the table already, along with my husband. Helen scoffed in the direction of my children before saying, "Janine doesn't let her kids use their phones at the table." I eyed Henry to see if he would say something, but instead he motioned our kids to put down their phones. Helen was right that it was rude, but she always had to bring up Janine somehow. It was Henry's childhood friend from grade school. Since her husband and her split, Helen is quick to bring her up. In fact, right before Henry and I got together, they were trying to set them up as an item. They dated briefly in high school, but it never got serious. At least, that's what Henry said. I set everyone's plate. My kids thanked me, and so did my husband. James barely acknowledged my efforts, and Helen didn't bother to say anything. It was like I was chopped liver. "You should invite Janine and her kids on the trip, Henry. It would be lovely, and your kids would have someone to play with," Helen said in the middle of dinner. I wasn't opposed to having them accompanying us on the trip, but I felt bad that we were paying for everyone's trip except theirs. Of course, my in-laws didn't know we were paying for them just yet. "Janine told me her twins are at summer camp. I still think we should invite her at least, especially since her separation. She's awfully lonely." "Didn't they separate 2 years ago?" I interjected. Helen glared at me, but afterwards she didn't say anything. While the in-laws were in the living room, I spoke to my husband about my ill feelings about Helen, and by default, James, because he chose to ignore me rather than say a word to me. "I can't handle it, Henry. They treat me poorly constantly. I don't know if this trip is a good idea." "Dear, stop worrying, okay? This is an amazing idea. It would be a grand time between you and me with the kids. My parents will do better, I swear it. I'll talk to them." He kissed my forehead, and I immediately felt better. The following week, Helen called me and apologized for her behavior. And to think I believed her. For the next week, she was actually sweet to me. And so was James. They invited me over for lunch without the kids, and it was going well. After a month had passed, the trip was coming up. Helen had bought the tickets months ago, since she had a good deal. She used to be a flight attendant. She told my husband and I that our flight was on Friday night. But things turned for the worse. I worked at a job that didn't allow me to have my cell phone on me, so I left it on silent in my locker. I got out of work at 9 p.m. When I looked at my phone, I saw 15 missed calls from my husband and 5 text messages. "My mum told us the wrong day. The flight leaves tonight. I'm getting the kids ready." "Raven, we can't refund the tickets." "We have to go." "Raven, I'm sorry. We're going to have to leave you." "Don't worry about your wasted ticket. Janine was able to take your seat." I worked relatively far from where I lived, so it made sense why he didn't come and get me. But I don't understand why he didn't call my job. He has their number. I was beyond pissed off. How do you accidentally misread the plane takeoff date? I know they told us at the last minute on purpose. She quite literally told my husband an hour before the plane took off. So now my kids and Henry had to rush to the airport. They think they are so slick. But how was Janine ready to go with only an hour's notice? I was fuming. as soon as I got home. I tried to find a ride for the following day, but that couldn't happen. I had to wait a few days. For those 3 days, I was stuck at home as I had already requested time off. Every single day, I saw a new notification on social media and saw Janine with my children and husband on Henry's timeline. I didn't resent the woman, but I could tell even in her body language she wanted to be part of the family. When the third gig came around, I went straight to the airport on my way to Brazil. Instead of texting my husband, I had landed. I went straight to the front office and asked for my father, Antonio. He owned this resort, and he had already met up with the family to greet them. He was confused that I wasn't there until Henry informed him of the mishap. So he was pretty shocked that I made an appearance at his office. "Hey, honey, I didn't think you would make it." "Surprise," I said, going in for an immediate hug. Lord knows I needed it. "How was the plane ride here?" "Fine, just fine." "The kids must have been excited to see you." "They actually don't know I'm here yet."
"Huh, you haven't gone to meet up with them yet?"
"No, I have a favour to ask before."
"What do you need?"
"My in-laws have been giving me hell for years, and they've really outdone themselves this time." I explained to him every issue that had occurred and ended with the latest problem. I've always kept their misgivings a secret because I didn't want to worry my father, especially because he lives so far away. What could he really do? But since we were on his soil, he could help me in other ways.
"You want me to sabotage the room they're staying in?" He was so shocked.
Yes, I know it's extreme, but these people are trying to set my husband up with another woman. They are trying to ruin my trip with my family. He thought about it for a moment, but eventually relented.
"I'll do one better. How about I upgrade your room as well?"
That sounds like a plan. I met up with my husband and kids shortly after. The three were excited to see me. Janine was polite and said hello, while my in-laws were both sour. I even heard James say,
"Well, there goes the fun."
For someone who chooses to talk to a wall than me, this was extremely annoying to hear. Henry had apologized for not trying to call my job. It totally slipped his mind because he was trying to get the kids ready, and he was panicking as well that they were going to be late. I didn't hold it against him. A bellhop boy came to our room later that day and told my husband and me that we got a free room upgrade. So we got ready and went across the hall and told my in-laws. They were jealous, but they tried to hide it with excitement. The kids, my husband, and I were sent to the villa with a private pool and balcony attached. It was beautiful. The in-laws and Janine came to our room to see all the excitement. Janine was enthralled and instantly began swimming with the kids. My in-laws grew sourer and sourer.
"Is there a way for us to get the free upgrade too?"
James asked. "I'm not sure."
"I'm not talking to you. Henry, do you have any ideas?" "My dad's not the one that works here. Bravens does."
He chuckled, trying to soften James's blow. James turned back to me with a fake smile.
"Oh, yes. How can I forget that? Ain't it a bit rude that you'll get a villa and we're staying in a crappy suite?"
I wish he could hear himself, because he sounds ridiculous. Janine popped her head from the pool.
"I don't think it's crappy at all. I love my room."
Helen gave her a smile before looking at me with disgust.
"We're the elders here. It makes no sense that you didn't just give us the room."
"Well, we didn't, Mum. This is for the kids anyway. Were you going to be swimming in this pool?"
"Well, no. You know, I can't."
"Then it's settled. You're always saying you want them off their phones, so they are, having fun in the sun and swimming in the pool."
It was left at that. The fun was just starting, and the day would only get worse for Helen and James. My husband and I played with the kids outside. Janine has gone to the lounge, and the parents went to rest before dinner time. When we met up with everyone for dinner, Helen and James were not happy. They had ordered extra towels for the room, but no one had answered the phone at the front desk. So they went to the front desk and they said someone would come up and give them towels. That never happened. Janine said she had no problem getting customer service. Maybe it was a good thing she came. She was like my own personal buffer. The in-laws weren't happy, is all that could be said. That was a minor thing, though, so they got over it by the end of the night. The food had cured their annoyance. However, things worsened when my husband got a phone call from his mother late at night.
Mom, calm down. What happened?
He put the phone on speaker so I could listen in.
The air conditioner just stopped running all of a sudden. Do you know how hot it is? It's 88 degrees at night. Is yours still on?
Of course it is.
We need to move rooms now. This is unbearable. Get Raven's father to hook us up with a villa now.
I shook my head, no, and mumbled it was too late. That my father was already asleep. I guess she had heard me because she said,
Wow, when you're actually useful for once, you don't even want to help. I thought so.
She hung up the phone, and I sat there smirking to myself. I was winning. That morning, they went to the front desk to request a room change. All the rooms were full, but not really. They just didn't need to know that. Janine offered to switch rooms with them, and they didn't even bother to pretend that they would decline. So within an hour, their rooms changed. Janine was in the in-laws room, and the in-laws were in her room. Within an hour, Janine's room AC was working, and my in-laws was not. The worst offence they received was finding a cockroach in their bed sheets. It was already dead. Now at this point, they had already switched rooms, so they associated the bug with Janine. They complained to my husband and began making Janine look disgusting and gross during dinner that night. Luckily, Janine was out mingling, so she couldn't hear their horrid words.
It might have been a good thing you dodged a bullet with her. I think she brought bugs in.
Well, we don't know for sure, dear, but who knows? We didn't have bugs in the other room for all its faults, and it was already dead, squashed. So she must have slept on it.
She probably brought it with her from home, James chuckled.
They are truly sick. I decided right then and there that I wouldn't pay for their room as promised. My kids were off playing with the other kids found on the resort, so it was just my husband, me, and the in-laws. I looked over my shoulder and saw Janine was at the bar getting drinks and chatting with a man. When I looked back, Helen rolled her eyes in her direction. I had enough. No one was good enough for her son, I guess. Why are you two so critical? I asked in annoyance. Helen spat back her drinking shot.
Excuse me?
Control your wife, Henry.
James grumbled. Henry didn't say anything, so I took that as my opportunity to continue.
You could have had it worse.
And what do you mean by that?
Aren't you forgetting something? My father owns this resort. It has a 5-star rating for a reason. Why, all of a sudden, has your room always been in disarray since I got here? Helen took a gasp.
You wretched woman! How dare you? Henry, aren't you going to do anything? She sabotaged our trip.
My husband looked at me and then back at my parents before taking a bite out of his food. Wiping his mouth with the back of his napkin, he said,
Why should I? I'm so sick of this pissing war between you two. You've been mistreating Raven ever since we started dating. I think you deserve what came to you two.
I released a sigh of relief. He was on my side. Finally, he saw the light.
You've got to be joking with us, Henry. Come on. She sabotaged our room. We can sue this place. You know that, right?
Then say goodbye to your grandchildren, because you aren't ever going to see them again. After the first 3 days on this trip without Raven, you didn't think I noticed you dropping hints about Janine and me trying something. I would never cheat on my wife. And the fact that you tried ruining this trip by telling her the wrong date is quite pathetic.
We did no such.
Save it.
Wow. I've never seen Henry act so domineering. It was pretty attractive, but I could also handle my own battles. I cleared my throat and looked back at my in-laws. Now, all you have to do is apologize on your hands and knees in front of everyone at the restaurant.
Can't be serious.
No, I am very serious. Or perhaps a little, I interrupted Henry by giving him a shoulder squeeze. Honey, this is all I ask for, and I'll have my father give them a villa, and they can stay 2 weeks extra, free, of course. Only if they did exactly what I asked for. Both their ears perked up at the sound of that. They looked at each other for a second before shrugging their shoulders. They got up from their seats. At first, I thought they were going to leave, but instead, almost simultaneously, they got on their hands and knees in front of me. Everyone in attendance was looking in our direction. Some faces looked concerned, while others were stifling laughter.
I am sorry,
said Helen. James stayed quiet, so I began staring at him. When he didn't get the hint, Helen elbowed him. Yes, sorry. I think you can do better than that.
I said I was sorry,
he snapped. Helen cursed under her breath and began glaring at her husband. He sighed and said in a much calmer tone, I am sorry.
For being cruel to you.
You don't deserve that. That's all I wanted to hear, I mused. The entire restaurant wouldn't stop whispering and pointing at our table, but I did not care. I wasn't the one that got embarrassed. Shortly after, I told my father to upgrade their room to a villa, and that we were done scheming. After that, my in-laws still had their moments of being cruel, but any time there was a family vacation planned, they decided to skip it, claiming they didn't want to intrude. In reality, I think they're just afraid of what I might do next.